the food industry has the best psychologists. We are nothing to the food industry. Don't be lied to just because you dropped sugar, wheat products, and seed oils yourself. And we all know, all of us, we sometimes mess, right? All of us, we sometimes mess. And that's the reason why we do fasting. And so now, the food industry has the best professors in psychology, the best pediatricians. And do you know what they are doing? They are studying behavior. They are studying behavior from the word go. So they want to capture your child's attention from 0 age all the way to the grave. You think these things are by design. They capture that child attention to food addiction from the time they are born all the way to the time they die. Actually carrying food into the stomach. And then we get, as it joins the stomach, there is a sphincter, kind of a valve that makes sure that no content of the stomach comes back into the esophagus to burn you. So that sphincter that closes and opens is what we call the cardiac sphincter. Why cardiac? Because it's nearer the heart. Okay, so there are two. There's one that is on top of the stomach, the other that's under the stomach. The one that is under the stomach is called the pyloric sphincter, but the one that is on top of the stomach is called the cardiac sphincter in relationship to the heart. Now, remember this cardiac sphincter closes and opens up in relation to how much concentration is the acid in that stomach. So if you have a highly concentrated acid in that stomach, that sphincter will close because that acid is dangerous. How beautiful is nature? If you start weakening that acid in that stomach, what happens? That sphincter opens up. And if it opens up, you suffer the consequences of a reflux disease. So you need to make sure that your acid is always highly concentrated. And we'll talk about how to concentrate that stomach acid. So from the mouth, I will just go slowly. I will mention the foods that are digested in the mouth. I'll mention the enzymes that are in the mouth. I'll mention the type of pH. And remember our last live, we talked about alkaline and acidic foods. I hope you do remember. So I'll talk about the pH in the mouth. And then, of course, after I mention the mouth as the organ, we will mention the pH and then the enzymes and what foods are now digested at this level. And once you do that, you'll start to understand where your problem began, where your gut issue began. So, for example, when you're talking about the mouth, all of you know that you are an individual who must have some discipline of diets. You are responsible for what goes through your mouth, so you'll never blame people. That if it was not for John, I would have not eaten that meat. If it was not Mama Mboga here, I would have not been eating these types of vegetables. If it was not for that uji that is made by that lady who comes on and brings uji to that construction site, I will not be taking that uji. No, the decision of what goes through your mouth and in your mouth is specifically and individually on you. So you have to take the consequences of what is going through the mouth. We know that this is the only organ that you can actually control what goes into that mouth of yours, when or what time it should go in there, and then the most interesting part is how long it will take in that mouth. Because listen to this, most of us, you are in a hurry to eat because you think you have an empty stomach. And who told you that an empty stomach is a sign of hunger? It is not. Hunger is a mindset and it's just a wave. So most of us are so in a hurry to load up and fill up our stomach. And this is where the problem starts, because this is where you get your addictions from. So your mind is so weak that when you just think you have an empty stomach, even without an evidence, just because you ate 3 hours ago, you are thinking already, I've digested and my stomach is empty and I feel hungry, so I need to load it up. And then you fill it up. And then now every single organ that receives blood flow from the heart starts to suffer because it starts to receive limited blood flow. Now all that blood has to be channeled into the stomach for digestion, for absorption, and for carrying this food from the stomach all the way to the liver. So you're actually affecting your system generally. That's the reason why after you've eaten that ugali, you thought you'll be very active after eating ugali. And then guess what happens? You're dozing off in that office. You ate those 2 chapati with that tea plus sugar, and you thought you will be very active because tea makes you active. Tea gives you a fake high. So you think you'll be very active after taking that tea, and then after you just take that tea, about an hour down the line, you're yawning. You are wondering what time lunch will come in, and you just took tea about an hour ago. You are so much in a zombie mode. that you cannot think right. Your mind is fogging. You have so much, there's just so much going on. And you even start getting bloated because now, now the concentration to just digest this food is actually what is turning you away from what you're supposed to achieve that day. So you realize it's difficult for you to even to perform normal functions that you do perform. And there are people who in the same office who are performing superbly and they did not eat that chapati because wheat has something on us. But wheat story is aside. So your mouth, you have control over what you eat, when you eat it, the frequency, and how long. So the reason why I brought up that issue of you just being in a hurry to fill the stomach is I realized even after fasting, most of you will suffer the consequences of that fast. Okay, the side effects of that fast, you'll suffer them. Why? Because you're quick to fill the stomach, forgetting that one, that stomach was resting, and now you have to awaken the gut reflexes slowly but surely. Again, you are so fast to just swallow instead of taking time to chew. I will tell you an interesting story about chewing. It is very necessary that you chew your food to almost a liquid form. It is very necessary because there is a reason why you have those molars and the premolars. Those molars and the molars are actually designed to help you chew that food, the grains, the starches, the carbohydrates. Because remember, the mouth is where carbohydrate digestion begins, but it does not end in the mouth. So just hold that thought. Digestion of carbohydrates or the starches begin in your mouth through an enzyme called salivary amylase. Salivary amylase is the enzyme that breaks down carbohydrates or the starches into smaller molecules that you can easily absorb. But that is just the beginning of carbohydrates digestion. The major digestion will happen later on in the gut. So I'll tell you, the finalization of that process will happen as we go ahead. So, two foods that are digested in the mouth. One is the saturated fats. So when I tell you to eat the animal fats, when I tell you to eat the coconut oil, to use the coconut oil, when I tell you to use that ghee, that tallow, this is where the digestion begins. So in the mouth, there is something called sublingual lipases. When you hear the word lingual, it's the tongue. When you hear sub, it is under the tongue. So sublingual lipase. Lipase comes from the word lipids. And the word ASE, the suffix ASE. So when you have a word, and then you add ASE at the end, it becomes an enzyme. So lip for lipids, and then S for the enzyme. So lipase, an enzyme that basically breaks down lipids. Are we clear there? So when you eat that saturated fat, digestion of that saturated fat starts in the mouth. And also, I know most of you just know that in the mouth, we only digest carbohydrates. Now you have something new. And then carbohydrates are also digested here. But remember, these two, it is just the beginning. It is not the final stage, okay? So at this moment in time, we are not even planning to absorb them. We just initiated the process of digestion so that as they go down, they will be finalized and then absorbed optimally. Take a second and think about that. So now, since you have control over what or how long that food stays in your mouth, take your time. There's nobody who is chasing you. There's nobody who is pushing you or pushing you that food into your throat. There's nobody who is forcing you to eat. Take your time, chew. And remember, as you chew that food, as you chew that starch, that's the point where the brain is activated to inform the glands, the salivary glands, to start producing salivary amylase. Now, an interesting point here is babies have no salivary amylase. Your child does not know how to digest starches. Babies start with the milk teeth, and it's for a reason. It's milk teeth because they are basically feeding on milk. By the time they are growing those two teeth, those milk teeth, some mothers have already started feeding these children with the cereals. Whether processed cereals, whether mashed beans, whether rice, there are parents who start feeding their child as early as this. Shoko knew. Why? Because this child does not have salivary amylase. This child does not have molars. Relax. There is a reason why they started growing the milk teeth. And then when they shed the milk teeth, they grow molars and premolars to start digesting the carbohydrates. But this child has not even grown the molars, and you're there feeding them with rice. And some mothers are so cruel that you will press your child's nose and blow air into their mouth so that they can just swallow that food by force or fire. Because anytime you put that starch into their mouth, nature tells you no, it comes out. Anytime you take that milk and you mix with that cereal, you know the cereal that you use to mix with milk to give the child the breakfast, the best breakfast, you know that? You can mention it on the comment section. Most of you use that cereal to just dilute it or dissolve it in sugar and in milk, and then you start feeding your child with a spoon. So you're forcing food into the throat of the child, and when the child is resisting it because nature says no, I don't have the enzymes to digest this cereal, what do? You pinch the nose of the child, you make sure the child looks up against gravity, and then you blow air into the mouth of the child so that they struggle swallowing. Now you'll suffocate that child, or you'll cause perspiration pneumonia. You know these things. Yes, that is the cereal that I'm talking about. You know it. So most of you, when you sit on that breakfast table, you want to force your child to eat. You want to just make sure that everything goes through the throat. But you're forgetting this child must grow molars for them to start producing salivary amylase to digest the cereals, to digest that meat. And this will also go to you parents who think just because you've helped or assisted in chewing those grains, now they are good for digestion for the child. So you go ahead and chew those that rice, or you chew those beans, and then you're busy soaking them in the mouth of the baby. You're messing those children or those babies. They are very beautiful creatures. Let them remain as so. Now, at that stage where this child or this baby starts to develop the sense of taste, this is the point where everything they touch has to go through the mouth. Everything they have to touch goes through the mouth. Now, guess what? We have very cautious moms, right? Said we have cautious mom, they will sanitize every surface because the child touches here and touches the mouth, because the child wants to eat literally everything, including their legs. Now you're busy sanitizing every surface so that they eat something clean. That is a mess. This is the time where this child's immunity is trying to remember things and become stronger. So let this child play with the pets. Let this child play in grass and mud. Let the child do whatever they want to do. You can only monitor. Don't start putting thoughts in the head of this child that they are doing the wrong thing. They are so good, they are defined perfectly, they are designed perfectly to actually understand, and nature is actually playing a role in them. So they know what they are doing at that moment in time, only that they don't have control over it. If they touch a snake, it goes into the mouth. If they touch your finger, it goes into their mouth. If they hold anything, straight into the mouth. That is the point where nature is telling them that now it's time for you to develop taste. So simply taste every single thing. Now, guess what? As a cautious mom, this is the time you start telling the baby, wacha hiyo ni kali, mbaya, tupa, throw that away. That is, babji, that's a bad one. Don't eat that. Have this one. Tam, this one is a sweet one. So this child is looking at you and now starting developing minds. Okay, this is the bad one, right? Okay, so this one is the sweet one. And now, the weird part is, this child starts to imitate every single thing that you do. When you feed them with sugar at that moment in time, and then later on you want to tell this child, and that's why I'm having a hard time right now. So when you feed this child with sugar, with chocolates, with sausages, and then this child develops that type of taste, which is a fake taste, compromise taste. Now later on, you want me to tell that child that vegetables are healthy, that vegetables are sweet. How will I be able to convince this child that sugar is the danger and vegetables are the best foods? How? And you started the initial process by misguiding this child, altering their taste buds. You actually pushed it into their heads, their minds, and even the taste buds have totally been messed up from the beginning. Now, do you see how important digestion is? How you just need to understand the basics of digestion. Do you see how important it is? So at that moment in time, you'd rather let the child just experiment, or give your child healthy foods so that they develop tastes and taste buds remain in their natural forms. They can easily taste foods in their natural forms. Number 2, the food industry has the best psychologists. We are nothing to the food industry. Don't be lied to just because you dropped sugar, wheat products, and seed oils yourself. And we all know, all of us, we sometimes mess, right? All of us, we sometimes mess. And that's the reason why we do fasting. And so now, the food industry has the best professors in psychology, the best pediatricians. And do you know what they are doing? They are studying behavior. They are studying behavior from the word go. So they want to capture your child's attention from 0 age all the way to the grave. You think these things are by design. They capture that child attention to food addiction from the time they are born all the way to the time they die. They start by you as the mother because they capture your attention, and now the breast milk that you're producing is actually zero nutrients. Now what do? You'll have to go and buy that milk formula of theirs. You have to go and buy those nutritional supplements, one that tastes like groundnuts. And that's what you want your child to enjoy. So they know that at this moment in time, this is the time where the child is having a development, is actually in the development stage for tests. So they will make sure they capture the attention of the child by one, making sure that all your social media platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, television, and the media is advertising things that appeal to the babies. They use children for advertising and they capture the attention of your baby. Now, when you walk into a supermarket, when that child is a little older, that is what they want. That is what they want. What they saw on TV is what they want. What they saw on your YouTube is what they want. Bright colors, red, white, very emotional marketing, children dancing, babies dancing all over. They knew this from the word go, the mouth stage. And now they compromise these products. They add in sugar, they add in MSG to just make sure that the taste buds of the baby is totally numb and they cannot taste foods in their natural states. And once that happens, oh my goodness, this child is a food addict already. By the time you're looking at your baby and you're seeing a very fat baby, you don't know where this came from. No, you do know where it came from. You started introducing them to bad foods, and then you allowed them to go and watch all these media platforms that are actually giving them the information that they want. At that moment in time, they don't even have power to make a decision, but subconsciously, they will want what they see. Trust me, they will want what they see. So for you to make sure that your child is having a healthy life, keep your children off the media. That is one. Thank me later. You can take your baby as they are growing. Let's say possibly after they have grown the milk teeth, now they have outgrown the milk teeth, now they are actually growing up. And then baby around 4. And then your baby is with your phone on TikTok, of course, just scrolling. Of course, that's how we are raising babies nowadays. We're raising zombies without even knowing. And then your baby comes along, a video of those 2 people on TikTok who are eating like crazy. One is the guy who dances with food. The other one is the lady who is just consuming literally everything. Now your baby is looking at her as a role model. Your baby wants to be famous too. Specifically girl child. They want to be famous. They want to enjoy those food because they think these are the sweetest foods. So they are thinking you're denying them food. And guess what? You fall for their trap and you start buying them this pizza, start buying them these cereals. And now your baby is hooked up to the food industry for a lifetime. We orchestrate these things by ourselves. So get your child off the media. They don't want it. They don't need it. Get your child off the sugars. Start feeding your child healthy foods. Anyway, that's aside. So now we are digesting this food. Salivary amylase and the sublingual lipases. They break down the fat and now the food just goes down, is mixed with mucus. And remember, mucus is 95% water. This point comes at a very appropriate time because there were videos that I was being forwarded to where somebody was saying that mucus is disease. That mucus is disease. And then he still goes ahead and tells you, rehydrate adequately. And then I'm wondering, but what is rehydration? Mucus is 95% water, so how is it a disease? Anyway, not going to the politics of that. But the reality is 95% of mucus is water. And now this mucus is the one that lubricates foods. So let's assume that mucus is a disease. So when you lubricate food to go through your esophagus into the stomach, how is that a disease? How is that a disease? Now you're being told to avoid mucus. How can you avoid mucus? Body produces mucus literally everywhere because it has to fix some things, it has to lubricate some things. Mucus protects your gut from the acid, as we'll talk about the stomach. That aside. So this food now goes through the esophagus slowly and smoothly and gets into the stomach through this sphincter, the cardiac sphincter. So it opens up. Once it opens up, food goes through and gets into the stomach. Now remember, in your mouth, the pH is alkaline because salivary amylase and the lipases cannot function optimally in an acidic pH. That's the reason why your mouth is alkaline. So as we go down, we get to the stomach where the acid pH starts to ensue. So in the stomach is a strongly acidic pH. So what do? This stomach is strongly acidic and it was designed to be that way. But we are coming in with food that has the salivary amylase to break down carbohydrates and the lipases to break down the fats. And now we are encountering a very severe environment and these enzymes cannot function optimally. So at this moment in time, their function goes back to zero. So therefore, in the stomach, there's no digestion for fats. There's no digestion for carbohydrates or starches at all because those enzymes have been inactivated by the acidic pH. But that acidic pH is there for a reason. Number one, this food is coming in and possibly is coming in with microorganisms that were not killed by saliva, because in the saliva we have the immune system, we have cells and chemicals and enzymes that can actually destroy most bacteria. That's why your mouth is actually protected by that saliva. As long as you protect your saliva, you eat healthy, you drop the foods, no fermentation processes in the mouth, you drop the commercial toothpaste, you drop the mouthwashes. As long as you do that, the saliva will be in perfect condition to protect you. The mouth bacteria will be in perfect position to protect you. But as long as you're using the commercial toothpaste, as long as you're eating sugar, you're eating the cereals, the processed foods, you're destroying the environment around your mouth. Now you start suffering the consequences. Now, this food is coming in with possibly, let's say, Salmonella typhi, let's say H. pylori, even though H. pylori has basically become a normal flora. So let's say it's coming in with brucellosis. And most of you will tell me, if I eat meat, I'll get the meat disease, brucellosis. And I'm like, no. Don't blame the brucella. Don't blame the bacteria. Blame your gut, because you've messed up your gut through foods, through alcohol, through cigarette smoking. And now you want the bacteria not to conquer you. It will conquer you and you will suffer. So stop blaming the bacteria. They have to exist anyway. We cannot do anything about bacteria. We cannot go killing all bacteria in the environment. But we can protect ourselves by strengthening our stomach acid. So anyway, this food is coming in with this bacteria. And HCl in the stomach plays a very important role in clearing these bacteria, these viruses, these fungi. So it clears them. Therefore, somebody who has a very fixed gut will not need a cholera vaccine, will not need a typhoid vaccine, will not need a brucella vaccine, whatever it is. Will not even need the therapy, the medicines for this bacterial infection, because their gut has already the first line immunity, which is the hydrochloric acid. Hello? Are you getting it clearly? So your gut is very important. Your HCl in the stomach is very important. Again, HCl plays a very important role in tearing down protein molecules, larger protein molecules, to give you the smaller ones, so that the pancreas can produce the proteases that will chop them down easily into amino acids that you can easily absorb. Okay? This is why you start thinking that this guy is not a doctor. This guy is a lifestyle coach. This is the time you call me a lifestyle and a dietary coach. Because I take you through digestion, I take you through all the anatomy and physiology of the gut, and then I tell you where you go wrong. Does your doctor do that? Does your doctor do that? Anyway, so HCl is here, and another role for HCl. How does HCl help you in digesting protein? You see, there is an enzyme that is called pepsin. Pepsin is a powerful enzyme that can easily digest your stomach. It can easily digest even the pancreas that produces it. It can easily digest the stomach wall that actually produces it. So this pepsin is produced as an inactive substance called pepsinogen. Let me take you back to biology. Pepsin is produced as pepsinogen so that it doesn't digest the stomach wall, because the stomach wall is actually made up of protein, even the pancreas. So for it not to digest this stomach wall, it is produced as pepsinogen. And then God was so interesting to make sure that your stomach acid is HCl, very low pH and highly concentrated. That HCl is the one that chops off this pepsinogen to make it active pepsin. When you eat that protein diet, it just lands into your stomach. HCl does its work. You produce pepsinogen. HCl breaks it down to pepsin. And now that pepsin is the one that helps you digest the protein, tear the bigger molecules into smaller molecules. And then somebody tells me, I have hyperacidity. I have too much acid. And then I ask you, you have too much acid. Okay, what are the symptoms? Oh, I feel pain in the stomach. I'm like, but we have acids, but we don't feeling the pain. What is happening to you? Oh, I feel it coming back and burning my throat. I'm like, You have reduced the tightness of this sphincter by reducing the concentration of this stomach acid. So you're just suffering the consequences of the food that you ate, of the alcohol that you drank, of the medicines, the antacids that you're taking. Because they neutralize stomach pH and they open this sphincter. And of course, that thing that you call a heartburn comes back. That's what we call the reflux disease. So do you need, again, antacids and PPI kits to just tighten this sphincter? No, you don't, because they will actually mess up the stomach environment more. So what you need is a fast and water plus salt. That will concentrate the stomach pH, and then a protein diet to even concentrate the stomach pH even more. And then when that happens, your GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disorder, disappears in the blues. And then you come back and tell me, Daktari, when I went to the mountain to fast, I came back with God's healing. You fasted, for heaven's sake. You concentrated stomach acid. Okay? So God went through your mind so that you can fast. There was an intervention, of course. But the reality is the biology behind it. Okay? Good. So that HCl again makes sure that food flows in one direction. It doesn't go back. And then this HCl makes sure that the bacteria that are in your stomach are those that are supposed to be there. Those that don't exist here should be destroyed. They should be destroyed. And that's the interesting part about it. Okay? Good. So what next? We have chopped down our protein. So protein is the only food that is digested in the stomach. Okay? Protein is the only food that is digested in the stomach. And as we head into the small intestine, it becomes even more interesting. Now remember this, the wall of the stomach is very thick with mucus. And I told you, mucus is actually 95% water. So if your gut wall is thick and it's just basically mucus and bicarbonates, that tells you hydration is very important in somebody who has gastritis or ulcers. Why? Because the more you hydrate with water and salt, the more you thicken that stomach wall, the more you form the mucus to protect you from the acid that is coming in contact with your wall. So anybody who has gastritis, start by rehydrating with water and salt. Thank me later.